is holy to dogs, do not throw your pearls before swine, or they will trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and it will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, and he who seeks finds, and to him who knocks it will be opened. Or what man is there among you who, when his son asks for a loaf, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, he will not give him a snake, will he? If you then, being evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give what is good to those who seek him? So in everything, therefore, do unto others as you would want them to do unto you. That is the law and the prophets. I thank God once again for this opportunity. We were talking about judging others maybe 2-3 weeks before. Last week we talked about the judgment that is coming from God himself. Notice in the scripture portion that we read is that we are asked not to judge. But when we looked at that topic, it was not that we are to judge someone externally, but we are to have righteous judgment. And notice in the passage that we read, God did not say, hey, don't worry about the splinter in your brother's or your sister's life, but worry about your log in your eye first. And that log represents the horrible attitude that you would have towards your brother. You would look at the wrong in your brother, and without any love towards him, without any respect or without any brotherly or Christ-like attitude towards him, you just pinpoint out, there's that wrong, there is that wrong, there is that wrong in you. Jesus is saying, man, don't do that. Yeah, worry about the splinter, but first have an attitude towards that brother that is of love. Take the beam that is sticking out of your eye first. Take that attitude of hatred out first. Take that attitude of unChristlikeness out first, and then you can go and minister to that brother and say, hey, let me take a look on that splinter. For example, if you're a person who judges someone by what they wear, right? By what they wear, God is saying, man, have a love towards them before you can go speak to them. Because in the scripture it says, the judgment that you use, the standards that you use, that is the same standards that Jesus is going to use against you. This is what it means by this or that. Whenever you judge someone, what happens is God recognizes that you have light in that area. That you have light in this particular area. And he's going to use the same standards to judge you as well. Because you have had light. Because you know what you're talking, you have gotten. That's why it says in James, I think chapter 4 or chapter 3 verse 1, that man don't, is it just changing because, sorry. Most of you don't try to be teachers first. Don't try to be teachers first, because it is going to be the same standards that you speak, God is going to use it against you. For example, I mentioned, if you are looking at someone and externally they don't dress right or immodestly or something, and you are going to go speak to them, God is going to use the same standard against you. How? Because you are saying to this person, hey, you shouldn't wear things that wants to impress others. God is going to use the same standard against you, saying, hey, are you doing some things in your life that are to impress others? Maybe you dress right, but perhaps you pray longer or fast or give just so that people can get an impression of that you are a spiritual person. God is going to use that same standard against you. So first he's saying, man, before you go correct someone else, see if that same correction you need in your own life. Amen. Before you start correcting somebody about anger, somebody about gossiping, somebody about this, that, and the other, see in your own life, man, is that an area that I need help in? Or I need Christ's intervention in? You guys with me? Right, so he gives us this outline, man, before you take out the splinter, take out the log first. Now, this is the verse that I want to focus on moving forward. It says in verse 6, do not give what is holy to dogs, and do not throw away pearls before swine, or they will trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces. These are the words of Christ. He's calling people dogs. He is calling people swines. In another passage, we saw him calling people fools. Yeah, these are the words of Jesus. But notice who he is calling dogs and swines. If you were to take dogs and swines, what is their main criteria? What does a dog and a swine want? They want food. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for food. They're looking for comfort, a nice shaded area so that they can sleep. Right? They're looking for sleep and comfort and food. They're looking for sex. They're looking for that. They're looking for basically this earth. They are earthbound, completely earthbound. And when a person, and even sitting in a church, you guys with me? Even sitting in a church, we can have this attitude of that's all we want. And we can have like a whitewashed religion saying, oh, I come to Christ just for these things. That I want comfort in my life, and I want luxury in my life. I want the next meal in my life. Basically earth-centered. And we can be in this church and have the same attitude and live with that same attitude. Most of us will only pray to God when we have an absolute need, something to do with earthly things. And Jesus is saying, don't throw your pearls, costly, holy things unto them. What is these pearls and holy things that God says? Man, the things about victory over sins, things about the love of God, that is only mentioned about 1,000 times in the Bible. In 35,000 verses, only 1,000 times the love of God is mentioned. And it's always mentioned to the people of God and never to the outsiders. When we when we start having this attitude of a dog or a pearl, we don't recognize, man, the love of God. We don't recognize what sin is and what victory over sin is. Don't throw these pearls and holy things towards God, towards dogs and swines who have no interest for the spiritual things or heavenly things. They have only interest for the things of the earth.
Amen.
So God is not saying, man, no, we are to deal with these dogs and swines or folks that have that attitude, this earthly attitude. But first help them to recognize, man, these things that you are living here only for the earthly things, there is something bigger and better out there. There is something bigger and better out there, which is the heavenly call. That's why Paul says to Colossae, stop looking and focusing on the things that are on the earth, but rather fix your eyes upon the things that are up in heaven.
Amen.
And we can come here in this church and we can have a religious activity just to satisfy our earthly things, but we can be absolutely centered about my comfort, my sleep, sex and food and just the things of the earth. And unfortunately, we have a generation that is only for that and not thinking about the things of God. And that is why we cannot understand the depth and the height of the love of God. Because in Ephesians it says, you have to come towards a fellowship to understand the love and the depth and the height of God. The love of God. You know why we can sit silently looking at that love? Because we haven't completely understood His love. You know why we can sit around in our house without serving God? Is because we haven't completely understood the love of God towards us.
Amen.
Because for many years, folks have been throwing pearls and swine, or pearls and holy things to folks with the attitude of, man, we haven't gone past the things of the earth.
Amen. Hallelujah.
Come back to a level and start seeking for the things above.
Amen.
And you'll see great, mighty things that happen.
Hallelujah.
I want to skip a couple of verses and jump to verse 12 of that verse. There was a Hebrew scholar named Shammai before the time of Jesus. There were many scholars that have taken this golden rule and have their own interpretation. Right? Matthew chapter 7 verse 12. I want to just read a couple of them. The Baha'i faith says, ascribe not to any soul that which thou wouldest not have ascribed to thee, and say not that which thou doest not. Brahma says like this. This is the sum of dharma. Do not unto others which would cause you pain if done to you. A state that is not pleasing or delightful to me, Buddha says, how could I inflict that upon another? Hurt not others in ways that you yourself would find hurtful. But the words of Jesus says, so in everything do to others what you would have them do to you. For this sums up the law and the prophets. Did you see the difference between Jesus and everybody else?
Amen.
Did you see it?
Yes.
The difference is everybody said, hey, don't do those things to others that you don't want them to do unto you. But the words of Jesus was, do unto others. There was an active thing. When others were absolutely passive, man, don't do those things if you don't want them to do unto you. Man, but you be the active person.